these opening protocols and why we do this, why we take the time to set a tone and an energy for a room before we begin important discussions. It's how we think about our way of life here in guidance. And so I want to take a moment and invite you to put yourself in the seat. Turn it off. And I really want you to think in your mind about a place or a thing or something that recharges your battery, something that really fulfills you and gives you that energy to keep going when it gets hard, that brings you much joy. And I want you to hold that in your mind while I share this story for each of us this morning. Just a brief moment for us to take a good pause and bring it
Thank you, Kalani. My name is Gillis Ling, and I'm an administrator with the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. Welcome to our Made in Hawaii branding workshop. We are pleased and excited by your attendance today on a subject that is close and near and dear to our hearts, and that is Made in Hawaii. You will hear from a number of speakers who will give you perspectives on brand, best practices, and how other brands have been developed, and how we can take the Made in Hawaii brand to another level. But we also want to hear from you on your thoughts, experience, and suggestions. To set the tone for our session, it is my great pleasure to introduce and welcome the Honorable Sylvia Liu, Lieutenant Governor of the State of Hawaii.
Good morning and aloha. It is such an honor for me to be here, and it's so good to see so many of you participating in the Made in Hawaii workshop. I'm going to tell you a couple stories. Just recently, last week, I was in DC with the Lieutenant Governor Association, and we had about 26 lieutenant governors participating. And I was really wow, this is so perfect. Half the states are here representing and talking about something special. But just like somebody from Hawaii, the thing that you did, of course, is you bring kumiaki. So every time you go to any function, you go to a business trip or whatever, you bring a little bit of Hawaii with you. So of course we brought a bunch of macadamia nuts, and in the past we brought the kona coffee, and people, I mean, that's all they talked about. So they stopped in the middle of an important workshop, and they were like, oh my gosh, we have chocolates and macadamia nuts on our desk, and I just wanted to thank the Lieutenant Governor from Hawaii. Automatically notoriety because I brought something from Hawaii. Whenever you bring something from home, the entire conversation turns to, hey, I visited when I was in college, or I've been there on my honeymoon, and boy, I wish I could have gone to Maui, or I could have visited Hawaii, or I did something, or it's on somebody's bucket list. There's something, what happens, there's something special about the Hawaii brand, and it's romantic, it's unique, it's special, and there's a certain flavor of mana. Mana is something that you cannot explain, but it's there, and you know, and you feel it, and that is what Hawaii is. So I'm gonna tell you another story. My son, of all places, he ends up going to a college in Memphis, Tennessee. he had all the different choices. Of course, not the top notch because my son, he's not the, don't tell him he's not the top of the chart in areas. But he went to Memphis, Tennessee, a small school in Memphis, Tennessee, and he loves it because they don't treat him like a stereotypical Asian kid or somebody who is a college kid. As soon as they found out that he was from Hawaii, they treated him like a superstar. And even your kids, other than going to a university, extension of a University of Hawaii school in the West Coast, because you have 200 kids from West Hawaii there. If you go to some school like somewhere out in Indiana or Florida or somewhere where not too many Hawaii kids go, they automatically become instant celebrity, because no matter if you're young or you're old, everybody has this feeling about Hawaii. That's what we are trying to capture in this Made in Hawaii. That special feeling, not that we're trying to sell any other product, any other state. They're trying to sell a product. In Hawaii, Made in Hawaii is trying to sell that feeling, what it means, how special it is, how special the people are, how special this place is. And it's this warm feeling that you get when you envision Hawaii. So mahalo for your being here to talk about how do we brand and package it. Not just for ourselves. It's not only about retail, but it's about that feel, about sharing that kuleana, sharing that responsibility. So mahalo to Debet, mahalo Chris, Dane, Dennis, and mahalo especially to OmniTrack for the research, because without research and data, we cannot take the next step. So mahalo for your participation.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. What a way to start our event. To also provide some opening remarks, I would like to introduce the Deputy Director of the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, Mr. Dane Wicker.
Aloha and good morning. It's great to see so many businesses, business owners, and DBED partners here for a critical point in today's launching of the Made in Hawaii branding workshop. Appreciate everyone taking time out of their schedules. Our Business Development and Support Division team has been working diligently with the OmniTrack group since last June on the Made in Hawaii brand research project. And we are very excited to share our findings so far. Key learnings will be shared with you throughout all of today's presentations and discussions. However, more importantly, it is that we hear from you, our stakeholders, on how you align and promote your company with the brands with the Hawaii brand. Food, beverage, apparel, and other manufacturing accounts for approximately $1.5 billion of manufacturing output taking place in Hawaii. You are critical in the diversification of Hawaii's economy. A good portion of this output currently benefits or could benefit from other Made in Hawaii brands. As Lieutenant Governor Luke shared, the Hawaii brand has tremendous meaning for so many people. In 2017, I sat down with the New Zealand Economic Advisor to the US. The point of that discussion was for a group I was with to learn about New Zealand's agriculture and how they are sustainable. At the end of that meeting, the economic advisor suggested back, Hawaii has a brand, you folks should leverage it. Define and determine what products you can export to the world, and then in return, take those revenues and invest it into sustainability. It tipped the model upside down for how we were approaching it. It goes back to branding. DBED's goal is to authentically represent the Hawaii brand as best as we can to showcase our unique advantages to better enable manufacturers and supply chain partners to sell to consumers throughout the globe. Therefore, we present today's world-class speakers who will share useful insights they gained through personal experience, from Lori Lang, contributing to the gigantic Disney brand, Harold Koda, co-founder of the Met Gala, fashion's biggest stage. Dane Ambler, helping New Zealand gain global awareness and purchases, and we anticipate the knowledge they gain today can be immediately applied to your businesses. The breakout sessions will help us to intake feedback from you and suggestions we provide as learnings and potential new opportunities. The conclusion of today's event will gather state legislators and leaders from the Hawaii Tourism Authority, Hawaii Department of Agriculture, and DBED to share updates on legislation currently being considered and the path forward for government to collaborate with business. DBED and our sister departments stand as your partners. We aim for you to all become energized by today's activities. We will engage with you going forward to continue strengthening the Hawaii brand so we can all share in the benefits of our future efforts. Mahalo.
Okay, now for the meat of our program. Our first plenary speaker is Laurie Lang, from former Disney executives and senior vice president reporting to the CEO. Laurie Lang established Disney Global Brand Management and developed the Disney brand platform for all its diverse products and established policies to grow and protect Disney's brand equity. Before that, she helped launch the Juan Valdez marketing strategy, putting Colombia on the map as a coffee-producing country to compete with Brazilian coffee. So please join me in welcoming Laurie Lang. Thank you, Laurie.
Good morning and aloha. I'm so delighted to be here. I used to come pretty regularly to work along with Pat and on the track on a lot of really wonderful projects. I missed that opportunity. It's been a number of years, so this has been delightful, though I have to say I've missed the sunshine this time. But that's okay, it happens. It's good for the environment. So I'm here to talk to you today about the why, the how, the what of branding, and importantly, the lessons that I learned and the Disney company learned from my role as head of Disney Brand Management. And while I do that, I first have to get the clicker that changes. It's not the one they showed me yesterday. Okay, let me see if I can figure this one out. Is it this the arrow? No. Right arrow. No. Anybody? Improvisational. The other remote. Oh, Dennis hid it under his book. That's quite all right. When in the late 80s, when I came to Disney, it was not immediately clear that there was a need for any brand management. Quite the contrary. The company was doing very well. There was new management in, and each and every one of the multiple business lines and all of their products were growing, and profits were up, and life was good. I mean, there was, from Michael Eisner and Frank Wells, a 20% growth rate, and that was really happening. However, what we soon realized is because of all the activity from these separate and distinct business lines doing their own thing, each one involved in their own marketing, each one involved in their own product development, each one getting business partners and promotions, there suddenly was the risk of what we called overexposure of the Disney brand. More importantly, the inappropriate use of Disney name and characters, and the inconsistency of how Disney was shown in the marketplace. So it led us to really evaluate the situation. The first thing we did was like, well, let's really find out what's going on here, and did a massive review of all the activity in the market. And I remember to this day bringing into the executive boardroom samples of a lot of the promotional displays and the packaging and samples of the advertising commercials. And it was really eye-opening because you got to see, and the powers that be got to see exactly what was out there. We also did a lot of research. We thought, okay, what are the consumers seeing? Or actually, we started that way because we were hearing from them surprise, and I have to say disappointment. Because similar to Hawaii, Disney was really very loved. It had been a brand, it had been part of people's lives from Walt Disney back in the 50s, and they had almost a proprietary relationship to this brand. So I'd go and do focus groups, and they go, what's going on? Why would I find Disney stuff in pay for less? Not to put down pay for less, but they had an expectation of a certain standard. And when the quality wasn't there, or the characters seemed to be engaged with products that didn't fit what their perception was, they had feelings about it. So basically, that gave us an understanding we had to approach this differently. And we need a unified approach to everything branding because, in fact, from a consumer perspective, and by that I say buyers, business partners, the media, the press, that's the whole consumer universe, they only saw one Disney. They didn't distinguish us by our silos. They didn't understand that this was coming from Division 1 or Division 2. And so it really, at that point, was the beginning of what we call brand management. So the first thing we had to do is when thinking about, okay, what does brand management mean and what do you do when we have to create something? And that was to understand what a brand is, what a brand is and what a brand is not, especially when you have so many diverse entities who are participating to that brand, not only in the US, but also eventually globally. So what is a brand and what is it not? It is not simply a name or a logo or a slogan. People always go to that immediately, the identifiers of a brand. But in fact, brand is a strategic foundation of the consumer relationship. Relationship. People get to get tired of me saying that, but it's so critically important because for a consumer, again, if you want to develop brand loyalty and trust, you have to have a relationship. And then that relationship is based on everything that a consumer sees, thinks, and most importantly, feels about the brand. It's not just a cerebral rational decision, a cost-value basis. It's all of the things they feel about. It drives the consumer in terms of their purchasing, and it sets the framework for all communications and marketing and identity. That's the most important thing. You have to start with the brand vision and then do the work to create the brand expression. Let me just say a moment, why do we care? We care because when you have a strong relationship with the brand, you have greater familiarity and awareness, which importantly drives trust and loyalty. Trust and loyalty is the end goal here because only with consumer trust and loyalty will you have value, brand equity, and growth. And if you think for a moment about some of the brands that you use, there's a tremendous loyalty and trust in that. I always think of Apple as one of my kind of go-to. I mean, think about it. It started out as a computer back in the day, for those of us old enough to remember that cute little computer. But it was about then not only tech, right, but innovation, design, and then a way of being, a coolness, which allowed them to then go to the iPad and the watches, and now really being a content provider in terms of Apple TV. Trust us because we know what is the right thing, what is hip and happening. So that's the importance of branding. How do you build a successful brand? Again, the building blocks is a relationship. So it's based on that relationship and emotional connections. We have to understand what the customer, the consumer wants and try to fulfill their needs. And when we have that, not disappoint them. The brand is built on, and we'll go into this in a moment, core values. This is the building blocks of brand. And what I mean by core values are those beliefs and principles on which a company, a brand stands. And it's important. It's not enough to say, oh, we deliver a good quality product for a great price. That is not going to do it. That's the price of admission. You have to be someone that distinguishes you from the competition, but more importantly, drives what the brand does throughout time. It does not change. And we'll talk about that in Disney's core values in a moment. Based on that, it delivers a relevant and credible promise. If you think about a relationship, the consumer is buying you, is working with you because you deliver. We at Disney promise you entertainment. We promise you entertainment that you and your family will share, that will move you in a creative direction, and that's what you can be guaranteed you get when you experience Disney. So it is the core values from the consumer perspective. You cannot have a relationship unless you're consistent, and that was the key that we found when we examined the Disney plethora of products out there and promotions. Consistency. If you think about it, any relationship you have with people or an organization, your boss, whatever it may be, there is a certain, not expectation, but reliance on the fact they are going to be who they are all the time. And once they start moving in the other direction, you scratch your head and go, well, this is not the person I thought it was, which makes you question their integrity. Once you have a brand also, you have to honor the brand boundaries. It's an opportunity for growth, but it also sets up parameters, restrictions on places you cannot go, and we'll talk about that in a moment as well. So let me start with the core values, because I think these are really, really important. Because, again, they are the fundamental tenets of what the brand is, the essential tenets of the brand. And it sets a road and a path for what you can do in terms of growth. They're fixed, as I said, even as business strategies change, which is always the question. And my issue when I would have meetings over time, and it would be, but Lori, we can't do this. We want to get into this market, or we want to do this. I said, of course you do, and that's fine. But it has to meet the parameters of the brand. Otherwise, choose another brand. And we did that at Disney. We bought a lot of companies, but they did not exist under the Disney brand. Importantly, these values establish a consistent and common understanding. Very important. People would go, well, you know, this makes sense to the family audience coming to Disneyland. Those values, though, really don't apply to me when I'm looking at my empty nester marketing for the cruise lines. Well, yes, it does. You may find a way, you may tweak the actual messaging, but the values behind the message, the foundation of those are always going to be the same. And the values, and I'll show you, will be the internal guideposts. When I say values, I'm not saying you come up with your values, beliefs, okay, this is what we're going to use in our marketing campaigns. It's really the strategic guidepost. It's internal. It allows you to think about the brand, then to create the promise, then the positioning, then the identity, and then the branding. And the words themselves evolve and change, potentially, but it gives you the framework. So, Disney core values. And this, you know, we didn't just sit around and kind of go, what are they? We did a lot of research on this because, again, you always want to come from a consumer perspective. You can't tell consumers, you can potentially with a new brand, but when you have a pre-existing and there is a relationship, the first thing you have to do is honor that relationship. Honor that relationship. It's so critically important. So what we found is family. But it's not just family, because people go, oh, it's a family. Oh, meaning children, right? That's how Disney started. Here's the children. No, family. It means a shared experience, but it's wholesome and it's innocent. So the importance of taking a word like family is dimensionalizing it. And when you dimensionalize, it gives you a stronger sense of what it is. Family, fun. Again, what does fun mean? Well, what it means in a Disney sense is imagination, escapism. Take you to another place. Think about Disney movies. Think about Disney theme parks. Even when you're wearing a Disney apparel, I mean, it really just kind of transports you. It's a feel-good experience. That is the most important thing, too. It's an experience that I always had to talk about when we had our promotional partners want to slap a character on something. You can slap somebody else's character on that something. You have to make it more entertaining, more experiential, more related to the consumer experience. And entertainment, what does that mean? Broad-based, a lot of companies are entertainment. This is about storytelling, originality, and creativity. You know, when Disney makes movies, early on, it was really interesting. I loved meeting with the animators when they do the showcase. And you'd see, for example, on that animation, shadowing on the characters. Well, a lot of animation didn't do that. But these people, because they truly are artists, spent the time and the company spent the money to make these scenes come to life as much as possible, which is why these animated films live in our hearts and minds. When we brought those stories to the theater, if you ever saw Disney on Broadway or if it comes here, you'd go, wow, I never believed that Beauty and the Beast could be a theatrical experience, but they made it one by going that extra mile in terms of engagement. The next thing, as I said, is the promise. It's basically the customer-centric reflection of those values. We have the values, so now it's a commitment we're making to our customers that what we just shared as our values is going to be reflected in your experience with the brand. Whether it's the big ones, the theme park experience, the visit, the movies, but even on the smaller scale, anything Disney will reflect or deliver, if not all of those values, a good portion of them. And again, consistency across audiences and importantly, touch points. You can't, when you're advertising a theme park, even though you may get into ticket prices, as the thing you want to say, come now because there's a great deal going on, but the essence of the communication still has to convey the entertainment, the family enjoyment, the experiential nature. And you'll see that in other key brands. Let's take Nike. They may talk about the durability or the feeling of the sneaker, the shoe on your feet. But Nike is about athleticism, competitiveness, victory. The goddess of Nike, the goddess of victory, which is why they have partnered with all of these champions to make you feel that you are going to perform at your best. It's just not about the flexibility of the shoe. And that's important. That messaging is always there no matter what they're talking about. The important thing is, and I've mentioned earlier, is that brand vision, the values and the promise, that is what is the vision of the brand. That establishes the foundation, the vision of the brand. And it precedes and it drives everything to follow. It will drive product development and program development. It will drive image and personality, the expression and the visual identity. And it will drive, lastly, the marketing communications. A lot of companies, a lot of brands, they work backwards. Let's go to my advertising agency or something and come up with a good commercial, and then we'll make that work. But it's the opposite way of doing it. Now, it may kindle some notions about the brand vision when you're starting out, but it's really the end game and not the opening. So, with that in mind, what the brand is, what the values are, how to think about branding, and sharing that with everybody in the Disney organization, which was my job, which was very fascinating, going kind of place to place and at later country to country and try to proselytize the brand, especially why it's both wonderful to do, creating a brand management framework, but also difficult. Because typically the pushback I would get is, but we have to make our 20% goal, right? Economics, I have to worry about making that goal. And if you don't allow me to do this, I don't know, what am I gonna do? If don't have a deal with that cable company and allow Mickey Mouse to jump out of a cable truck, they're not gonna work with me anymore. It's like, well, I'm really sorry. I'm not concerned with your short-term profitability. I'm concerned with the long-term equity of Disney. And every time you do something that weakens the brand by using Mickey or any character in a commercial way, you are weakening the long-term equity of the brand. And that was the biggest struggle that I had in my job. Thankfully, the key players, the CEO, the COO, and the board were always supportive of brand management. In any decisions that went to them, they said, no, we're going to go with the brand. I mean, there were some instances where it's like, well, we may have to tweak here and there. But that's really a key thing, that you have that buy-in especially from the top. So we then had a framework for managing the brand and kind of help us understand how we should take on growth. And so with every presentation, I'll just read it. It really was important as we stretch the brand creatively and into new markets and lines of businesses, we need to remain true to the brand's essential tenets. We really need to remain true to it. Disney is fun. It's a wholesome family experience. And by family, again, it doesn't have to be just children. Family is defined in many different ways, and you'll see how we evolve to other kind of audiences. But it's experiential. It's engaging. It's imaginative. It's not staid. It's not just simply putting a character someplace and then calling it Disney. And it's magical. It's creative. It's storytelling. So as an example, I love showing the bad examples. Don't tell anybody if this ever comes back. But there was a plan by the folks at Walt Disney World in Florida. They came up with a great idea that they wanted to do a deal with all the rest stops down Interstate 95. Let's Disneyfy them. I said, what does that mean? What are you going to Disneyfy? Are you going to create like mini theme? No, they're going to just stick characters on. So that's the kind of thing we had to deal with. So on the other hand, though, we were able to stretch the brand into new markets. As an example, and I can't go into everyone because I know I'm going to run out of time here, but we used to license our resorts. We then took them over in Disney World. We have timeshares. Cruise lines was a big step. It had been licensed to Premier Cruises. The answer that was put the characters on it. Well, that really wasn't a Disney experience. So after a number of years of looking, we created our own cruise line. But to do so, we had to reimagine what the cruise was. We put more theaters in. We created separate places for people to be together or people to be apart. We added much more entertainment. The cabins were family-focused and family-friendly, bigger. If you have little children, you need a bathtub. So things like that. What do you do to a product to ensure that it then is Disney? With those businesses, we had to find ways to reach our empty nesters and our honeymooners. But you don't lose who you are as Disney. It's, again, those same tenets stay true. We may talk to them a little bit differently. But the reason they're resonating and like Disney is for the basic things. We did the stores, fashion apparel, grew tremendously just by creating the kind of merchandise that people felt expressed the brand, and then global expansion. So in the end, what is our mission? that to ensure the exposure of everything Disney builds on the identity and the meaning of the brand for its customers. There is only one Disney in the end. There's only one Apple. There's only one Nike. Ladies and gentlemen, there's only one Hawaii. Whether you're producing food, whether you're creating apparel, whatever experiences, from a consumer perspective, there's only one Hawaii. So in Disney, everything we do, sell, and promote on the Disney name, and I suggest the same true here, impacts the overall equity of the brand. So how do we create success for Hawaii brand going forward? Again, know your customers and their emotional needs. The most important, and identify and build core values aligned with the overall brand Hawaii hierarchy. Now, the good news is you folks have moved along quite a bit in terms of understanding these consumers. A shout out to Pat Louie and On the Track for the research that was done, Lieutenant Governor mentioned. Very, very important, and hopefully that work will continue. They really just do great work. They did a lot of work for our Disney work in Asia Pacific, and it's really helped a lot understanding that market. When we have that done, when you understand what your values, create and adhere to brand guidelines in product development and marketing. I know you're doing that now. Critically important, not only in the product in terms of percentages that, but create guidelines in terms of marketing, how you want Hawaii represented in the marketplace. Consistent messaging, consistency, coordinated marketing efforts across all segments. Very, very important. I know you're in your own business and you think you're going to do this. And then finally, adapt to the local market. You have different audiences, local and visitor, both US and Japanese or other foreign markets. Importantly, and most importantly, embrace brand building long term. It's not just do the job and walk away. It's saying we really have to look at this and adhere to it. So on that note, I think I have to finish based on the timing. We'll do questions, not now, right? Yeah? Questions? Okay, great. I can open it up to some questions. And by the way, we're doing a branding workshop in this afternoon. Those of you who attend, we can do some Q&A there as well. Any questions? Yes. Well, that is for this group, or a subset of this group, to really figure out. So we're not here to present you, right? What I want to do is present you the framework of building. And then later, Pat will share some of the research, which certainly can be used as a basis. I think it's a working process. And that's really important. I don't want to rush to these. Plus, it's so important in terms of brand building. Well, I really can't speak about New Zealand. I can't say personally, that's not what I would say the values were. The folks who make French product. I don't want to go there and say something inappropriate. Yes.
Thank you for this. It was really interesting to see how Disney built their growth. How did you actually get such a large organization on board with what your objectives were to keep Disney as one common brand? Because I think we could all agree we identify with that, but then getting such a large company to fall in line with that had to be a challenge.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's difficult. Tenacity. And again, as I said, part of it was because the key players in the company believed in brand management. That was the first hurdle. Once they signed off, then it was easier, because when there was a disagreement with a brand division or something that we could not figure out, we could take it to Frank Wells or Michael. But that was really important because it showed their belief system. very quickly, Frank, there was an issue we were having, an issue, a question. We would do a lot of promotional partners. We had one with Nabisco, Nestle. And we were trying to keep the brand management approach alive in that relationship, in the promotions and licensing, et cetera. It got to a point where Frank, and I went with Frank to Switzerland to present to the head of Nestle and explain to him why we couldn't do certain things. So that was the kind of commitment I'm talking about. It's like, it's not just, oh, well, let it go. It's a real commitment. And then suddenly it flows through the organization. One more question. Yes.
Thank you so much. This was super informative. I work for Kualoa Ranch, and I could imagine Disney would have a ton of partners. And I'm wondering, for large corporations, how can you honor your brand and another company's brand and not create confusion amongst consumers when doing collaborations or partners on products or just in general?
Yeah, that's really a great question, because cross promotions are so important, and that just becomes to some degree a creative execution. But the first thing is stand for what your brand is. I mean, there are certain things in a negotiation you can give in on, and there's certain things you can't. So that's my feeling. We're not going over this line. I know that, I know McDonald's, you really want, our characters to be selling your product, but we're not going to do that because they don't do that. So you just have to be kind of true to what the values are. Okay, I'm getting the time out. Mahalo, thank you so much. It's been great. And thank you. And I want to now turn the podium over and introduce Dan Nellis, General Manager of Dole Foods. Hello. And he's been the General Manager now for 10 years.
A little bit more.
A little bit more. Worked at Dole for a total of 35, I understand.
Yes.
A graduate of University of Hawaii. And a shout out. And so he'll talk to you about Dole and that fabulous Dole brand. I love Dole products. Yeah. Lovely to meet you. Here
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Set up. And we should have a slideshow also. Okay, let me go back one. Okay. So I'm just going to do a brief presentation for you about Dole, primarily focusing on Dole Hawaii, but also talking about Dole as a global company. Okay, so the first slide, we're talking about our history here in Hawaii. And Dole has deep roots planted in Hawaii's volcanic soil. The origins of what is today Dole Food Company began here in Hawaii in 1851 by Samuel Northrop Castle and Amos Starr Cook, whose photos are up there, or portraits. Castle and Cook set up the business to sell wholesale goods, but they soon entered into food business, investing in Hawaii's sugar industry. Then in 1899, James Drummond Dole, 21-year-old graduate of Harvard, arrived in Hawaii. He had degrees in business and horticulture and a keen interest in farming. James Dole hoped to make a living by growing the exotic pineapple. By 1901, James Dole had acquired 60 acres of land 18 miles north of Honolulu in Wahiawa, where we are still farming today. And he formed the Hawaiian Pineapple Company. And rather than trying to export the fruit as a fresh fruit, Dole decided at that time to market his pineapples in cans and established a cannery near the pineapple farm. By 1905, Dole was shipping 25,000 cases of canned pineapple. The company's increasing supply, however, required a corresponding growth in demand. But at that time, few Americans had ever seen, much less tasted, a pineapple. So developing a successful marketing strategy became a high priority for the company. Dole financed an advertising blitz in magazines and newspapers on the mainland, promoting canned pineapple products under exotic foreign brand names, not foreign to us in Hawaii though, such as Ukulele and Outrigger, developing the synonymous connection between Dole and Hawaii that persists even today. Now, today, Dole, we still grow pineapple in Hawaii, in Wahiawa, and are now the only multinational grower still in Hawaii. Del Monte has left. Maui Land and Pine is no longer in the business. There's Haile Maile Pineapple on Maui is the other pineapple company. Dole Hawaii's Wahiawa plantation is drip irrigated with current acreage near 3,000 acres, and we employ approximately 250 associates. Currently, we produce about 1.3 million boxes of whole pineapples per year, and we sell about 80% of that here in Hawaii. And why are we still in Hawaii after so many have given up? Well, Hawaii grown has value for our farm in Hawaii, but also for the overall Dole brand. There is a consumer perception that it means more pure, closer to the sourcing. The Dole brand is special. It's known and trusted globally, built on the promise of consistent excellence. We believe that consumers associate the Dole brand with healthy, sustainable, high quality, premium produce with brand values and associations that seamlessly align with prevailing health and wellness trends. For consumers, Dole today stands for what is also for what it always stood for. This is a quote from our founder, James Dole, is that the company is built on three things: quality, quality, and quality. And for many, it's still associated with our origins here in Hawaii. Okay. We continue to invest here in Hawaii. And within the past few years, we have made significant improvements to our pineapple packing house on the farm in Wahiawa. In addition to our iconic pineapple, a number of years ago, Dole began to grow coffee and cacao on the former Dole and sugarcane lands on the Wahiawa Plateau, overlooking Oahu's famous North Shore, and we produce our products, cacao and coffee, under the name Waialua Estate. The 155-acre coffee farm sits above the coastal towns of Haleiwa and Waialua, while the 80 acres of cacao are situated at sea level along the banks of the Kaukonahua River near Waialua town. We have also built a chocolate factory in Honolulu at the former Pineapple Cannery location. And we produce bean-to-bar chocolate considered world-class in flavor and quality. Grown in Hawaii, made in Hawaii chocolate. Waialua Estates coffee and chocolate have further launched Hawaii onto the world stage for producing authentic specialty products. The Made in Hawaii appeal also translates into agritourism. Most of you here in Hawaii know about the Dole Visitor Center, which is a long-standing agritourism operation, but we are now going beyond that and doing our own agritourism separate from the Plantation Visitor Center. In fact, last year we instituted the North Shore Dole Pineapple Farm Tour, where visitors for the first time can venture into the actual operating farm with local guides to witness skilled field workers planting and harvesting and explore the packing house process for our sweet, iconic Dole pineapples. With a visitor center, a smaller visitor center that we've developed that highlights Dole's pineapple growing history and products, It's truly an exclusive educational tour of the whole process. We expect to soon launch a similar experience geared toward the Wailua Estates coffee and chocolate process. I think there should be one more. Is that it? Okay, so there was a slide about our challenges that I just briefly want to talk about. We do have challenges here in Hawaii, and the number one challenge is labor. Labor for agriculture is extremely tight, and we're constantly working with our union and with recruitment companies to see if we can improve in that area. And then one of the other major challenges we're going through right now is we're currently working with the state in support of Senate Bill 833 to make essential required upgrades to the Wahiwa Reservoir and the irrigation system, and thus avoid decommissioning the system, which would be catastrophic to agriculture and food production in central Oahu. And we're always looking for solutions to the ongoing challenges, but Hawaii Dole will continue to invest in Hawaii. We do need to make sure that we can make that Wahiwa irrigation system go for another 100 years into the future, and that's why we're working with the state of Hawaii to see if we can transfer it to them. Okay, thank you. And if anybody had any short questions. Thank you. Okay. Sure.
A quick question for you. So, contrary to Lori's presentation, they chose to keep everything under Disney. You guys diversified a little bit and did your Dole brand and then Wahiawa Estates. How did you guys make
Waialua Estates.
Oh, Waialua Estates,
Thank you.
apologies. How did you guys decide to make that as a different brand instead of keep it under Dole?
Okay, it's a good question. We wanted to really focus on Waialua because that's the part of the island where we're growing coffee and cacao. On the former Waialua Sugarlands, which was a Dole company, but was never branded as Dole, it was branded as Waialua Sugar Company. So we're following that tradition there and really tying it to a place in Hawaii. Waialua Estate chocolate and coffee comes from a singular area, very similar to how Kona coffee comes from a singular area on the Big Island. And that's why we chose to go that way. Those specialty crops are generally marketed and branded according to geographical locations, similar to wine, coffee, chocolate, wine. They follow a similar pattern. Thank you. Anything else? Okay.
Good morning. I have one quick question. Yeah?
Yes.
Hi.
Thank you.
Good morning. My mother actually, her first job was at the Dole Pineapple Cannery, which was amazing.
Yes.
So it's lovely to hear your speech. I'm interested, our company is constantly here in Hawaii. Doing business here is expensive. Getting raw ingredients here is expensive for you, labor. How did Dole actually manage really staying in business here in Hawaii when so many other pineapple companies?
That's a very good question. Couple of basic things. First thing is Dole owned this land that we farm. And Del Monte pineapple, which was very large in the Kunia area of central Oahu, they did not own their land. Maui Land and Pineapple did own their land, but they decided to focus more on real estate and not on pineapple any longer. It's really tough to stay in business in pineapple in Hawaii. But we've got a very good brand, and we add to the global brand of Dole pineapple, grown in Latin America and sold in the U.S. mainland and Europe. So when I have to go talk to the board in the mainland, I remind them that the iconic Hawaiian brand of Dole pineapple helps the entire company. So as long as we can not be a lost leader for the corporation, they're going to support us, and we're able to do that.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
I think I may know your mother. My first job was as the pineapple cannery, too. To add some substance to the presentation, data substance, that is, as we kick off today's program, we extend our mahalo also to the Hawaii State Legislature, who provided us with some funding for this program. We could not have done it without their support. So thank you very much. Anybody from the state legislature here? If not, we'll have some people later. But the development of a Made in Hawaii brand needs input from our stakeholders, from Made in Hawaii manufacturers to produce products, and from residents and visitors who buy Made in Hawaii products. For economic development to succeed, the needs of both buyers and sellers must be aligned. Further, market research results will help prioritize brand opportunities, and it will be made public so our local manufacturers have the benefit of knowing what their customers need, want, and willing to pay. Omnitrack conducted the research that you will be seeing. And now I'd like to introduce Pat Louie, its founder and CEO. Pat is an international and business development executive known for strategic leadership in both public and private sectors. I don't know why I'm introducing Pat this way, but everybody knows Pat. Aside from serving as chair and CEO of Omnitrack Group, she also is the treasurer of the $100 million Asia Foundation. She formerly was appointed by President Obama to serve on the full-time board of the Export-Import Bank of the U.S. in D.C. Previously, Pat was a marketing supervisor of Bank of Hawaii and also conducted on branding with Disney, General Motors, DFS, Cathay Pacific, Unilever in the Asia Pacific, and many others. So Pat, come on up.
Thank you. Mahalo, Dennis. And thank you all for being here. As you've heard today from both Disney and Dole, a lot about branding really starts with what your customer needs and want and what you and your brand, what values you stand for. So in launching this program, we really thank DBED and the state for beginning with a listening exercise. To launch this program, we reached out and listened to buyers, 933 visitors, and 639 residents, and sellers, 100 manufacturers. Okay. Where's the other one? Okay, no, that's okay, thank you. I buried it myself this time. Okay, so, oops. So what did we learn? Number one, the Hawaii brand is and can be an even greater driver of economic growth. It's trusted, it's authentic, it's high quality, and it delivers on its promises. These are attributes that brands around the world are striving to become. We're already doing very well on it. And we believe that this brand was rooted in tourism and the expenditures in marketing Hawaii as a destination, but it's now gone beyond it. So what is the opportunity? The opportunity is to market Hawaii as a lifestyle brand, not merely as a destination brand to attract more visitors to Hawaii. This is our core and it's important, but we believe it can go beyond that and become a platform for small businesses, big businesses, medium-sized businesses, and perhaps in the future even service businesses to launch new products. The strength of the Hawaii brand stands for a sense of place, multiculturalism, health, and natural beauty. And this, again, this is an emotional connection that great brands always seek. Number three, how do we define made in Hawaii? So we have criteria, but that's, and we know, and 51%, the majority, the large majority of buyers and of sellers agree there should be criteria. But criteria of what? Relating to what? So what we learned in our research is that our buyers and sellers strongly agree that we should not only count what is in a product, so the content of a product, but we should look at it in a broader context of how does Hawaii benefit. And if we look at it from that perspective, then perhaps we really need to consider including the jobs that a company creates, the rent that they pay in Hawaii, R&D, taxes, in other words, operating expenses spent locally in the state. This is something that we worked on in the Obama administration. I'm proud to say that our board expanded the definition of made in the USA to include, for small businesses, 51% of operating expenses spent in America. And why is this so important? Well, this is a pretty stunning research. And as you heard, we've done branding research for a lot of great brands around the world. But what our research shows is that a Hawaii brand has the potential to quadruple sales and adds value to both buyers and sellers. Buyers told us that they are 4 times more likely to buy products with a made in Hawaii seal than without a seal. So in other words, the demand potential goes from 15% to 41%. What did sellers tell us? 71% of manufacturers in Hawaii felt strongly that made in Hawaii adds value to their sales, marketing, and promotional success. So our conclusion, and certainly we welcome your input on how we implement this going forward, but Hawaii is a powerful brand. How we apply and diversify into a strong lifestyle brand is something that we look forward to hearing your input on, and this input will go into the plan that we will be submitting. Let's work together to come up with a brand that not only benefits this generation, continues to enhance our travel brand, but also diversify so it's broad enough to welcome small and big business products, not only for our generation, but for our children's children. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to answer questions, but we will be in the branding workshop. I'm here all day. Please come up to me. Happy to answer questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. Great data. As you've heard Pat say, the branding workshop, she will be there, and you can ask questions all the way through this afternoon and throughout. Our next panel is taking products to market successfully. Will be moderated by Ms. Ann Botticelli. Ann is a news reporter turned corporate communications executive. She has had a front row seat to the changes in Hawaii's business climate. She retired as Senior Vice President of Corporate Communications and Government Affairs at Hawaiian Airlines in 2020, but is kept busy as a volunteer board member for Polynesian Voyaging Society, Bishop Museum, Teach for America Hawaii, and as a Honolulu Police Commissioner. Please welcome Ms. Ann Botticelli. And may I ask our panelists to come up? Let's see, we have Byron Gu and Chris Schmicker, and by Zoom, Shep Gordon. Hi, Shep. Good to see you. Okay, Ann, it's all yours.
Aloha, everybody. It's really nice to be here today. And very happy to be here with 3 experts who, in our conversation prior to this panel, said they really want to give everybody the confidence to go out there and go for it. So joining us from Maui is Shep Gordon. I think you can see him up here. Mike Myers, the comedian, featured Shep in the documentary Supermensch, but he was already really well known to many as a super agent in the music industry and the culinary world. He's also a film producer, and he definitely knows his way around branding and marketing. Today, Shep is going to focus on how he created the Hawaii regional cuisine brand. Keiki Okaina Chris Schmicker, right next to me, is the global director at Shopify, which is an e-commerce business-to-business or B2B site. Shopify makes it easy for you to create your own online store without any specialized technical knowledge. It's not only for small businesses. Giants like Mattel and Black & Decker are also Shopify vendors. And unlike other e-commerce outlets, you are in charge of telling your brand story. Byron Gu is the co-owner with his wife Satomi of Tea Chest Hawaii, a purveyor of fine teas. The Gus started their business in 1995 and have benefited both from Shep Gordon's Hawaii regional cuisine brand building and as a Shopify e-commerce business. In fact, Byron says going online helped them survive the pandemic. We're going to ask each of the panelists today to give us a short overview of their efforts, and then we'll start the discussion. What I'd like to do, you now know that there are microphones up there. Go ahead and line up if you have questions. Like, rather than have you listen to us, talk to each other for a while and then ask questions, we'd like to be able to incorporate audience questions right from the beginning. So don't feel shy about standing up at the microphone, and you will get recognized. I'm going to ask Shep to start us off by walking us through how the Hawaii regional cuisine brand came about.
Aloha, everybody. Sorry I'm not there in person today, but nice to be sharing it with you. What I think we're going to try and do is give you specific roadmaps that we use. Doesn't necessarily mean that your brands fit into exactly that roadmap, but just to bring it down to a place where this can really happen. It's not somewhere in the clouds. It's really hard work and thinking. So let me tell you my story with the Hawaiian regional cuisine. It started in the 90s. I had moved to Hawaii in '74. I was a big fan of the culinary arts. I met some of the local chefs, Mark Ellman, Peter Merriman, Roy Yamaguchi, and they became my friends. In '92, professionally, I started representing 125 of the world's great chefs, Nobu, Wolfgang Puck, Alice Waters. But they weren't my friends. They were my clients. I barely knew them. I would come back to Hawaii to my home and have dinner with Mark and Peter and tell them about these great things that were happening to these chefs on the mainland. And I could see the disappointment. They were happy for me, but disappointment that they weren't the ones getting the attention. And I thought about how could I help my friends, and how could what could I do to take a group of chefs in Hawaii and get them international acclaim when I had seen how difficult it was in the music world, which I lived, to break out an artist from Hawaii. Don Ho was one of the few. I had worked with Yvonne Elliman, and even that was difficult. Distance, communication. So I thought about the culinary world and what do these guys have that could garner world attention? And first and foremost was that they lived in Hawaii, where everybody wanted to be. I had traveled around the world for 30 years, and whenever you say Maui or Hawaii, people light up. Oh, that's my dream. Oh, I was there on my honeymoon. So I knew I had a connection for them. If I could connect them to Hawaii, I could get interest. I could get people to want to look behind the curtain to see who these people were. So that's where I started. And then I said, well, how do I actually do that? We have a region. How do I make a region connect to a brand? And I looked in the culinary world. I'm a big believer in not reinventing the wheel. Use history because nothing is new. And when I looked at the culinary world, I saw that there were these movements. Nouveau cuisine, which came out of France. Southwest cuisine, which came out of Texas and that area. So I said, what are these? And these had a great effect on the world. Southwest cuisine was gigantic. France became, I remember American Express putting out a report that more people were traveling to France in 1991 for the culinary aspects than the historic aspects. So sense of place I knew meant something big, but how do I translate it? So I asked the founders of Nouveau Cuisine and Southwest Cuisine to come and talk to the chefs. And Mr. Roger Berger and Dean Fearing, Chef Fearing came. And I asked Peter and Mark to put together who were the chefs who used local products. Get me a group of chefs to bring to my house that would be sympathetic to what these chefs said. And it turned out that they both had similar journeys. The strength of their movement was the farmers, and the farmers had been disappointed so many times by new chefs coming into their farm saying, I'm now at the Ritz Hotel, I need arugula. And the chef would spend a year growing arugula, the farmer would spend a year growing arugula, and the chef was gone off to a new hotel and he's stuck with it. So we got the Department of Agriculture, which is what they did in their countries. Here we got the state of Hawaii to guarantee the farmers that the crops will be used, that will be bought. Maybe they won't be used, but they'll be bought. So that set up a system of putting the chefs and the farmers directly using Hawaiian products, which is what cuisines are about. So I now had the beginning of a story. I could go to the press, I could go to newspapers, I could go to Bon Appetits and say, the relationship between the Hawaiian chefs and the farmers is exactly like Southwest was exactly like Nouveau is. This is really exciting. This is really different. How do I get them to really be interested? So for me, I use the tools that I used in my other worlds, which I call it guilt by association. And I knew that Arnold Schwarzenegger had just opened a restaurant in Santa Monica called Shotzi. And I knew Arnold well, and I knew he was looking to promote the restaurant. I was looking to promote Hawaiian regional cuisine. So I went to the Maui Tourist Bureau. I went to American Express. I went to Hawaiian Airlines. I went to the people who would benefit by us creating a brand that people wanted to come visit, and put together a hui of people of self-interest, complete self-interest. Although everybody had an underlying theme of wanting to help Hawaii. And on the other hand, what I did is I went again to those same sponsors. I found a hotel called the Kealani that needed to be branded. And we made that the home of Hawaiian regional cuisine. And American Express and Hawaiian Airlines allowed me to bring in 20 of the top chefs in the world on a continuing basis to get across to the culinary world on the mainland how important this movement was, that there was a real movement. So it really started, everyone talked about it today, and in my world of cuisine, it always starts with the product and what's unique about it. And we're so lucky in Hawaii, because if we can hook Hawaii onto anything, it makes people want to open the curtain. And I'm happy to answer any questions about it. I think you've all seen how well it sort of worked. I think Roy Yamaguchi probably took it and ran the most with it, with his Roy's restaurants on the mainland. But it's flowed into everything else. And it wasn't brain surgery. It wasn't reinventing the wheel. It wasn't genius. It was just working hard and getting a group of people who really believed, and sticking with it and using the brand we had. Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to Byron now, and you can tell us a little bit about your experience with Tea Chest.
Thanks for having me. I have an HRC story. Shep, thank you very much for creating Hawaiian regional cuisine. We had come back from the mainland and we won the title Best Iced Tea in America in a national taste competition sponsored by the U.S. Tea Association. And my association with tea dates back to Asia when I lived out in Hong Kong and Taiwan. I realized that, oh, there's something different about this. It's not described just in two colors, green or black. And so I get a call from the general manager who works with Alan, and they're going to open up the Pineapple Room. And the Pineapple Room was going to be this, in my humble opinion, I thought that's where a lot of business was going to get done. It was going to be the only non-club, non-paid membership place where you can have the power lunch and be seen and what have you. And so they called me up and they say, hey, we want to do an iced tea. It's got to be special. And I said, okay, great. So I'm all giddy. I get this opportunity. We create a couple blends for Alan. And I walk my stuff in on the day of the tasting. And I see Gary Monago, who's the general manager, and he says, go set up in the corner. And I didn't realize, there were 20-something people there to taste the product. But I'm like, okay, great, this is an opportunity for us. So I go to the area where they told me to set up, and lo and behold, there's Lipton set up, and there's China Mist, and they've got their really fancy Wall Street logoed cups, and logo dispensers, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I have? I have a couple recycled Gatorade bottles, and they're numbered 1, 4, 6. And I put those out on the table. I get my bucket of ice, and I put my styrofoam, forgive me, styrophobia, styrofoam cups on the table, and I, walk out of the room. And Gary tells me, well, we're going to make a decision this afternoon. We'll call you up, by about 3 o'clock. I said, okay, great, fantastic. So, 3 o'clock comes, and I don't get a call. 4 o'clock comes, I don't get a call. 5 o'clock, I said, well, I better go pick up my styrofoam cups and Gatorade bottles. So I go back to the third floor of Macy's, and I open the door, and now they're in staff interviews, and there's like 100 people in the room, and I'm just kind of looking around to go gather my things. And way in the corner, I see my stuff, so I, tail between my legs and trying to be invisible, I go to the back of the room, grab my stuff. I'm walking out, and I hear this voice. It says, hey, we're going to use number 6. I turn around, and it was Alan, and I was like, oh, thank you very much. Thank you. We have been in business 27 years. We've seen a lot. We have survived 9/11. One, I got to thank Shep and again, the chefs, because they became not only friends, but my customers. The fact that we won a title, and then we got, the vote of confidence from a celebrity chef like Alan really kind of put us on the map. We went through a lot. Like I said, 9/11, we survived the Great Depression. Not the Great Depression, but 2008, 2009, downturn, the other recession. We survived that. But COVID was really different. And we took a class in 2018. We were part of the first cohort for Mana Up, and I see Kylan from Kohana Rum, who was a cohort fellow member. And I took it because I said, we've been around 25 years. What is going to be the next step for our company? And it was really about embracing technology. And this is 2018. 2019, we have a banner year. March of 2020, COVID hits. And by March, April, May, we've lost 80% of our business. Our revenue is down. We don't know what to do. I got to thank the PPP program for SBA for keeping us afloat. But I also got to thank this guy. That was our hard pivot to e-commerce. And e-commerce has allowed us to get much closer to our end users. And I'm very grateful to be here today, just to be around these very smart people, and thank God and thank Pat for being here. So,
Thank you, and that's a perfect segue to Chris, who has reminded me in particular several times, this is business to business, not business to consumer, and I know he's going to help walk us through that right now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ann. Sure. And Byron, I'll pay you later for that wonderful comment. Thank you. This is great. I think Shep and Byron's stories, say a lot about the hustle that Hawaii has. I tell my friends back home in New York, Hawaii is more than just sun, sand, and surf. It's hustle. And all of you are here because of that. Shep had an idea for Hawaii regional cuisine, and he just did it, right? He made it happen. Byron had an idea for a world-class tea brand, and he made it happen, and he hustled to get there. Shopify is not going to answer your questions of, why your business stands for something, what its value should be, what your business should project into the market. But it is the how for many businesses today. It's the how for acquiring customers online and selling your products online. So I'm Chris Schmicker, I'm from Shopify. I'm not from Spotify, if any of you were wondering. So I think we talked about this, yeah. And I learned that your son actually works for Spotify, right? I'm a fan.
He does, so if I get mixed up, excuse me in advance.
I get mixed up myself sometimes, too. Forgive me. I'd be interested to see a show of hands. How many of you have heard of Shopify? Oh my gosh, I'm doing it. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Keep your hands up. Now, how many of you are users of Shopify or know someone who uses Shopify? Okay, this is good. This is good. So as many of you here in the audience know, Shopify is a B2B technology company, as Ann said, that helps independent small businesses like yourself sell their products online, start their own e-commerce stores online, find customers online. It's used by millions of entrepreneurs across the world, 170 countries, and it is actually responsible for powering more than 10% of all US e-commerce sales, which is pretty impressive. In 2023, taking products to market successfully, the focus of this panel, in my mind, means being online. It doesn't mean that e-commerce has to be your only sales channel or even your primary go-to-market channel, but it means that you have to have e-commerce as part of your mix. Taking products to market successfully today doesn't just mean selling to local residents or in-market visitors. It doesn't just mean selling via traditional bricks and mortar retail channels or wholesale channels. It means being online. It means telling your brand story online and finding and acquiring customers online. Now that may sound scary, I know. And in the past, building your own e-commerce channel was a pain in the butt, I will admit, especially for independent small businesses with a lot of other things on their plate. You would have to go out and source your own web agency or tech team, hire and manage them to build a custom e-commerce site for your brand. And then the maintenance costs and the technical debt of having to manage that site over the long term were really high. It was really tough to be your own business. The good news is that today, it's never been easier or cheaper to start your own e-commerce site and find customers online. I really believe that. Because platforms like Shopify take that hassle of managing the technical backend, all of the backend tech stuff that you don't want to worry about, takes it off your plate so you can focus on customizing the front end of your website, the front end of all of those customer-facing touch points that Lori spoke to, those touch points that ultimately build a relationship with your customer. You can focus on customizing those to meet your own brand's needs, to share your brand narrative, to reinforce your brand values. That's a huge opportunity for any small business owner right now. Now, when you build your own store, of course, you still have to market it. You still have to figure out how to acquire customers and get them to come to your site. If you build it, they will not come. I mean, unfortunately, I wish it was the case. The good news there, though, is that there are a slew of low and no-cost marketing tools available to any small business that can make your task, that task a little bit easier. And I'll share a resources slide at the end of this panel with some specific tips and suggestions there. And you can come to the e-commerce breakout session later today to learn more. E-commerce is important regardless of whether you're an established business or an early stage startup, but truly I believe this Byron's story is one of having been in business successfully for so many years and then having had to pivot and diversify your sales channel mix. It's a great example of recognizing a need to evolve and diversify. Some of you may still feel that at the end of the day, building your own e-commerce channel is a pain in the ass, and I don't want to, you don't want to deal with it, right? It's too much work, it's too much hassle. Let's just skip it all and go straight to Amazon and sell your products via a large online marketplace like that. I do think it's important to consider the pros and cons of selling only via an online marketplace like an Amazon. There's no right or wrong answer here, but on the plus side, you have access as a small business to an enormous global marketplace of prospective customers. And it's really fast and really easy to set up those product pages and get started. But there's a few negatives as well. Number one, when you're selling through a big marketplace like Amazon, you're on Amazon's home turf. So you can customize your product pages to a certain extent, but there's not much opportunity to build a meaningful brand narrative in that marketplace environment. Amazon's brand comes first, not yours. Number two, you're at risk of becoming commoditized in an environment like that. So your product is one of thousands of products that are appearing in a user's search results. And you're being forced mainly to compete on the basis of price. And as we know for Hawaii small businesses, that's not a great position to be in. It puts you at an immediate disadvantage. And number three, there's also the risk that you're being disintermediated from your customers. You're not able to have a direct customer relationship because ultimately the buyer of your product on Amazon is Amazon's customer, not yours. And Amazon owns the data on that customer interaction as well, not you. So you don't end up learning a ton about who your buyers are, how they think, how they behave, what motivates them. And ultimately, long term, there's a risk that a platform like Amazon could use that data to compete with you. And that may sound silly or far-fetched, but it happens. A good example of this that we think we're all probably familiar with here is with Costco and its private label Kirkland Signature brand, which competes directly with Costco's own third-party merchants. Amazon Basics is another great example of this in action. So again, no wrong answer here. There is a million options available for you. You got to make the choice that is best for your business. Byron, I think you sell both on Amazon and via your own e-commerce store, from what I remember.
We do, and that was a journey for us as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what I really appreciate about Shopify, and I know this is sounding like a Shopify commercial, but I think what the pivot for us was really understanding. It's like we had this Ferrari in the garage, but we didn't know how to use it. You know, pre-COVID, our website was a glorified digital, business card. And the pivot for us with e-commerce was it allowed us. I think of my website now as our database. It's like our Teach Us Hawaii library. It allows us to talk to our audience and explain, like Laurie said about the why behind our brand and what we do and everything that we do. We're able to communicate our core values. So, part of the tech pivot onto e-commerce was not only understanding the technology, but actually investing in becoming more storytellers, understanding, who our audience is and what they're looking for. We were very fortunate to be able to, do surveys and what have you to get closer to our audience and just ask them the simple question. We asked, when COVID hit, we asked, how can we help you? To two audiences. We asked it to online. Luckily, we had a pretty sizable emailing list that we asked that question to. And we were just blown away by the fact that they told us, hey, keep me well. I'm hurting my knees doing YouTube videos because I can't leave the house, and, help me, deal with pain. And then, of course, stress management. The other group that we asked that to was our local suppliers, our farmers, and we said, how can we help you? And they said, just keep buying product. So it really gave us a pivot point too, because we wanted to now, the last 2 years of our R&D has all been around incorporating Hawaii-grown ingredients into our products.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that because, you talked about storytelling, that's sort of chef's world. We're talking about, we just heard from Omnitrack that there's huge equity in the Hawaii brand. And so what do the three of you think about this idea of creating a Hawaii brand that allows anybody who's their own entrepreneur doing e-commerce on Shopify to build off of that. Is that something we should look into, that Hawaii needs to think about doing as an umbrella for all of the Hawaii entrepreneurs, or not? Shep, I'm going to ask you.
You know, I think that's a hard question for me to answer. I think what's really needed is support from the state for each of the individual products with a reference back to it. I think if you try and put everything under one banner, could get a little difficult. It also gets the technicalities of what is made in Hawaii and what isn't made in Hawaii. What parts of your product, your packaging, it just seems to me rather than institutionalize the words made in Hawaii is a strong enough message that it doesn't limit you at all. But I don't really deal much with retail. You know, so I think our tea expert might give us a better answer to that.
Yeah, it's going from B2B, which was our primary channel before COVID. The pivot to B2C was very interesting. If we were to look forward about what Made in Hawaii and the opportunity there to brand it, it might be wise for us to look back, right? Like there was somebody from Kualoa Ranch here, and I know Dole, right, has invested in marketing their aha puaha, right, in Wailua. And so we might want to culturally step back in time and look at why these designations occur, and how can it benefit us all. I have another story about we did a focus group. Little known about our company is we own the trademark for plantation iced tea, and we wanted to see if we could take that concept worldwide. And we did focus groups in mid-America and even on the East Coast, and we spent quite a bit of money doing it. And Hawaii is a great and strong, powerful brand in the world, but it's pretty niched to sun, sand, and surf. And so, the data coming back to us in these groups was Hawaii wasn't known as a food destination or a fashion destination or, a fashion trendsetter. But that was 10 years ago. But I do think it's different. I think the internet brings us a lot closer to people. It gives us a platform to speak to our audience.
I would build on that. I think, the idea of a Made in Hawaii brand that's expansive and flexible is really powerful, because the tenets of what the Hawaii brand stood for, 30, 40 years ago are not the same necessarily as what it stands for now. You need consistency over time, as Lori said, but there has to be an evolution. I think to your point, Byron, like social media collapses worlds, right? Collapses distances. And we spent a lot of time, all of us, I'm sure, on social media during the pandemic. And my takeaway from that experience was seeing a different type of Made in Hawaii identity emerge on social media that I wouldn't necessarily have seen on my visits back home to Hawaii. And there are world-class creators out there who are carrying through the idea of Hawaii, its values, its vision, its products as well, and bringing them to audiences on the mainland and in other countries. It may not look exactly like what we think of when we think of Hawaii, but it's Hawaii still, and I think we need to be open to that as a community. That's gonna be really important. We gotta be open to listening and seeing what how Hawaii is being interpreted out there in the world, and not just try to control it, from the inside out necessarily. That's that customer centricity that's come up quite a bit, I think, throughout this day.
I like a tagline, made with aloha. I think it sort of gets the same kind of message across.
Shep, I don't know if you can see, I wore this for you.
I can't see.
I don't have a Shopify shirt.
Chris
I don't know.
is the only guy with a jacket on, and you and I, we've got T-shirts
Harold,
on.
even the New Yorkers here. That's why, right? We gotta
Shep,
represent.
my T-shirt says "Aloha in a cup." So
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really positive message, made with aloha. Aloha is such a strong word, And then it doesn't narrow you down to any definitions or get you into any fights with other people about what is Hawaiian, what isn't. Just as a thought, but I'm not looking to change the world, just
Good, Mana'o.
throwing out one or two thoughts.
We do want to take audience questions if you have some, and I'm mindful of what our time constraints are. So if anybody does have a question, just step up to them. Oh, there's one right there.
Aloha, my name is Michelle. I'm from the county of Hawaii, so not this island, the big island. So kind of expanding on what you guys are talking about, Sylvia Luke mentioned that special feeling, and she kind of called it mana, and that comes from the beauty of this place, the people, and our host culture, as you probably felt when Kalani had shared that beautiful oli. I noticed that data on authenticity and promise from residents were missing when you had shared the data portion, Pat. And also Native Hawaiian input was missing in that data. I was just wondering if you could speak to the value, yes, customer-centric, but what is the value of making sure that the authenticity is there when it comes to residents and our host culture?
I don't think any of us can speak specifically to the study and its methodology, but when we think about how to balance the tension between being customer obsessed or customer centric, receiving input from the outside on what the Hawaii brand or a Hawaii-based business brand should be, how it should function, and then the need for local communities to have a say in that same process and shape that brand as well. I think there has to be tension on both sides, tension in a constructive way, right? It's not one or the other. As a Hawaii-based business, ultimately we're ambassadors for this community, for our islands, and it's a privilege to be able to champion those values to the world, right? But as I was saying earlier, I think if we are closed to the idea of receiving input from the larger marketplace, then we risk stagnation, and we risk disconnecting ourselves from creative influences that might ultimately allow for Hawaii to remain vital, to stay vibrant, to inspire, that may inspire us locally. So I don't think it's either or. I think it's being receptive to influence, but not being slavish to outside influences. We have a heart and a soul and a core in Hawaii that is really, really strong, and we need to protect that.
Some of the mistakes that I see over time, or a mistake, is just slapping the Hawaii name on your product. And I think if we had done that 27 years ago, we probably wouldn't be in business. I do think it is trying to come out with a world-class product first, and then find an audience, and that's a little bit, we'll call it backwards too, right? What I just said is understand your audience, and then give them, meet their expectations, and better yet, even exceed them.
And I think, Byron, that point's excellent. It's about us as Hawaii small businesses being competitive in a global marketplace so that we get to tell our own story and not have other people tell our story for us. Slapping a Hawaii brand on something is a really cheap way to think about communicating our values and vision. But we know that there are a lot of mainland entrepreneurs out there who are happy to do that and steal our lunches. So that's why I care about hustle. That's why I care about competitiveness. That's why I care about the Hawaii business community rallying together around these types of ideas, because we should be the ones telling the Hawaii story, not those other guys.
That's right. Excellent. Question here?
Yeah. So speaking of talk story, we're really good at talking story here in Hawaii, right? That is something that's always.
Byron stories we're pretty good at. So.
But I wanted to find out, how do we get out of the sandbox mentality that we have in Hawaii, right? It's more of an incubator, a sandbox, because I just came back from the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, tech entrepreneur here, but really everyone you meet and talk with locally and outside, it's like, you gotta get out of Hawaii to grow, right? If you want to get a larger marketplace and market share, even to get investors in line. So how do we partner up with private public partnerships, right? And technology, data, and other factors to be able to not just to be an incubator, but really attract for us to stay here. I think that's very important, right? If you grow something out here, you want something to stay here and thrive here from from this marketplace. So, any thoughts? Thank you.
I don't know, Shep, if you have thoughts on like the
That's what I was
public-private
gonna say, I
partnership.
think
Yeah.
Shep is.
That's a really difficult question to answer. Another one that's difficult. I think you have to be realistic about what your competitive advantages and disadvantages are. And one of the unique things and why people talk about Hawaii and talk about Aloha so much is because it is hard to get to. You don't just come on a weekend. And that exclusiveness is important. So I think I know in the music world, which I know fairly well from doing it for so many years, you have to be there. You have to be physically there. That's a limitation. That's difficult when you're in Hawaii. That's why a Willie K, who probably was one of the greatest performers I ever saw, didn't really spread, because you have to be there. So, and I think there's a bigger question there, which is, what's it all about, Alfie? It's not always to be the biggest. You don't always have to create a brand to be the biggest. We all gonna die. You have to live a good life. So quality of life is really important. I love people who choose the lifestyle of Maui and the raising of their children here, even though they know that it may take a competitive edge away from them in their business. That's just reality. But look at what we get. Look at our advantages. So, I think you can get into the minutiae of rents are really high. It's hard for people to come here. But on the bigger scale, I think you have to look in a mirror. And is it always about being the biggest company in the world? Is that all there is? Or is it about doing what you do the best you can possibly do it and living the fullest life you can live? And that's made in Hawaii. That's what we have. So I think it attracts a different kind of people, a different kind of mindset, a different set of priorities. I know here we're talking about business, but business is one part of a life.
I can build on that maybe with two quick points. I think there's 1,000 true fans theory of marketing. Some of you may be familiar with it. To Shep's point, you don't need to be a million customer business to be successful and make a great life in Hawaii. If you can acquire 1,000 true fans that really care about your business and buy again and again from you, that's often enough of a core to be successful long term. To the point about brain drain and how we retain talent, how we continue to energize the business community, I can speak from my personal experience. 10 years ago, I would have thought as a kid raised in Hawaii who then went to the mainland for college that I'd never come back to Hawaii. It was not possible because there weren't business opportunities for me. I just talked to a friend a few days ago who runs a $5 million business in Hawaii with 2 friends and a laptop, basically, right? I'm working remotely from Hawaii this week for Shopify. So that gets me excited, and I think it's a message that we need to share with our younger generations. Entrepreneurship is a path forward for folks who thought that they couldn't live in Hawaii and make a living. They can do so now, in part thanks to web-based business models, e-commerce and such. That's exciting, and it opens up a world of possibilities for retaining great talent and continuing to enrich this business community.
Can I add something? I know
We're
time?
getting the stop sign, but you go right ahead, and then there is a break right after that, and people can chat. And I'm
so
sorry we
coming
didn't get
back
your
to
question.
the idea of what does the brand stand for, I think this is a great opportunity, to go deeper and call it a pivot, but redefine, made in Hawaii or made with Aloha. As I mentioned, we live in a very noisy world, and so it's a question of who's going to define what made in Hawaii, made with Aloha means. And it should be us, and we have the tools now to do that with the internet, et cetera. Are there business owners here? How many? Can you raise your hands if you actually are a business owner, brand manager, et cetera? Okay, yeah. I was involved with the Food Manufacturing Association 10 years ago. And, there's various seals of quality and made in Maui, made in this. That only adds to the noise. I think what this is an opportunity to do is build the framework in which those things can coexist. And at the end of the day, regarding business, it's about investment. And so, I think a lot of our dollars are being invested in sun, sand, and surf. And if we can get some of those dollars to market, hey, some of the world-class, some of the best food, some of the best tea is in the world is grown in Hawaii. We have a tea that's grown on the Big Island that is being sold in Harrods of London for $10 a gram. So that's close to, $5,000 a pound for tea. And of course it's being drunk by the Prince of Dubai and, what have you. But we have the ability to create world class. And coming back to my involvement with HFMA, food manufacturers, back then we tried to develop an ecosystem of support around here, and there are tons of support now. I'm really glad to see 10 years later that, there are nonprofits as well as public investment being made in our local entrepreneurship, our local businesses. I know it's tough here, but we can rise above all of that. And I'm glad to see that, hopefully the message will get tighter and the meaning will get deeper and stronger.
Okay, Byron, thank you very much. I'm sorry we're out of time. We do have a break after this, and I'm going to go ahead and commit Chris and Byron to chatting with you on the break to get some questions answered that you didn't get asked. Thank you very much to Shep Gordon coming from Maui. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Byron. Enjoy your break.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, Ann. Shep, sorry you weren't here. We would have given you a lei, but I don't think it would match with your T-shirt. So.
Thank you. Aloha.
Okay, everybody, it's break time, so we'll be back here in, 7 minutes.
their seats, please. Do we have everyone in from outside? Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and start here in a minute. Everyone can please take your seats. All right. All right, we're going to start our next session. There you go. Okay, we're going to start our next session. Did you leave something? That's what I always do. Okay, aloha, welcome back, everyone. My name is Mark Ritchie. I'm a branch chief in business support services at DBED, and I'm honored to introduce our next guest, who came all the way from New Zealand to be with us today. Dane Ambler is Executive Director of Buy New Zealand Made, a campaign that encourages people to buy New Zealand-made products. Prior to his current position, Dane worked for a number of businesses and organizations across Asia, and he also spent time as a business journalist at the National Business Review in Auckland. Dane's most recent project was launching and managing the Shop Kiwi campaign, which now has more than 3,000 members. Today, Dane will share the lessons learned in growing the New Zealand Geographic Branding Program and how they may apply to Hawaii. Mahalo, Dane, for joining us.
Well, aloha everyone, and kia ora, and thank you for having me. It's always been one of my dreams to visit Hawaii, and now that's come true. So I've had a really fantastic few days. I went over to Maui and spent a bit of time here, and it's been truly amazing. There's so many similarities between New Zealand and Hawaii on so many different levels. The countries are so similar just in appearance and landscape. It's quite unbelievable. A lot of people have asked me, what is New Zealand like? And I'm just like, exactly like this, you know? It's like exactly the same. But you guys have much better surf and a lot better weather. Obviously, New Zealand is very, very, very cold, especially right now. I think it's getting towards the 0 degrees. I don't know what that means to you in terms of Fahrenheit. It's cold. It's a bit of a, I was telling these guys yesterday, it's a bit of a miracle that I made it here in the first place. There were a few hiccups. I didn't realize I needed to get an ESTA to enter Hawaii, so I arrived at the airport and I had to apply for an ESTA, and it came through an hour later when my flight was boarding, so I had to do the whole run to the gate thing. Then I got to Maui, I hired a car, and I drove the road to Hana. And there was some quite significant rockfall, which hit the tire and blew it out. And I almost lost control of the car. So yeah, it's been a heck of a journey. And then actually before that, the whole time I was on my way over, I was like, remember to drive on the right-hand side of the road. So I left the car park when I picked up the car out of the lift. It's a bit embarrassing, but you know, I was very tired. I've been traveling for a long time. And then the last thing was when I burst the tire, I had to walk, you know, a few kilometers. I also don't know what that means to you guys in miles, but a really long way to find someone to help me. And I ended up at a house of some native Hawaiians who were very hospitable and really, really nice to me and helped me out a lot. And helped me to change the tire. And I was talking to Zed, who was the younger, he was probably 17. He changed the tire for me. And he was like, oh man, New Zealand? I hear you can drink water from the faucet in New Zealand. And I was like, hold on a second. Are you telling me I can't drink water from the faucet here? Because I have been for the past 2 days. So something to do with an oil pipe bursting or something. But if I do go down during this presentation, well, I better make this special. That's all I can say. No, yeah, it's a real honor to be here. And as I said, so many shared values. The Maori or Māori culture is very similar to Hawaiian. Actually, I spoke to my friend yesterday who's a Green politician in New Zealand, and he said he can basically speak Hawaiian because it's so similar in terms of the language. I notice you go to the toilet, it's wahine and kane. In New Zealand, it's wahine and tane. So many words like mana means to be strong. Aloha even is a word for us. It's aroha and it means love, obviously. So yeah, you better trademark the made with aroha before. No, just kidding. That's yours. That's yours. It was your idea. But be quick. Just kidding. Okay, so yeah, I run the Buy New Zealand Made campaign. We have 3 different logos that we use. We license out the use of this trademark. So the main one is the one in the middle, New Zealand Made. Actually, before I get into it, does anyone know what this logo actually is? Kiwi, you know? Okay, that's fantastic. Because a lot of people in certain parts of the world aren't aware that the Kiwi is our national icon. And a lot of people, especially in America, refer to New Zealanders as Kiwis. So it's a very iconic native bird to New Zealand, and it is endangered, and a lot of Kiwis identify quite strongly with the bird. So yeah, New Zealand Made, we've launched a logo for New Zealand Grown, so that's produce or food and beverage manufacturers. We launched that maybe 5 years ago, and it's having a lot of success. Obviously, Manuka honey is a huge industry for New Zealand, so a lot of Manuka honey businesses use New Zealand Grown, as well as wool manufacturers. Our wool products are very big in New Zealand. And very recently, we launched New Zealand Code for software-based businesses that do a majority or all of their coding in New Zealand. We just see that, industries are changing, and a lot of our businesses are moving online and being online service orientated. So you sort of want to capture that audience before it really takes off. Yeah, we really refer to ourselves as the marketing edge. So it was launched in 1988, so we're really lucky. We've got 30 odd years of brand recognition and a lot of investment from ourselves and government to grow the brand to be so well recognized. It's known by 90% of New Zealanders, so almost everyone in New Zealand will know this logo. A lot of people have it tattooed on their body, which is weird. Quite often you go out to a party and I'll tell people what I do, and they're like, "Oh, New Zealand Made," and they pull up their sleeve and it's like, okay, yeah, all the time. Actually, I recently learned that someone in our office had it tattooed and had kept it, pretty low key. So yeah, combined with our perceived purity of the products and natural environment, just like Hawaii, we're well positioned to grow the brand and be, well received internationally. We've got 1,500 companies signed on. That might not sound like a lot, but New Zealand's only got 5 million people, right? So we're quite a small country, but a very innovative and entrepreneurial country. Yeah. To qualify, companies need to do all or a substantial amount of their manufacturing locally. We have a very, very strict eligibility criteria that we put all of our businesses through. Actually, something that surprised me when I started this role 3 or 4 years ago was how many applications we decline. So we probably turned down about 30 or 40% of our potential revenue. But it's that whole thing around scarcity sort of creating demand, right? The more you say no, the more people actually want to use it. And we find that a lot of manufacturers will change their processes just so they can use the logo because it's so well received by consumers locally. Yeah, so like quite often we'll get a company apply and we'll say, look, you can source this component locally, why aren't you? We're not going to give you a license, and then they will actually decide to procure that material locally just so that they can be accepted for the campaign. I'll give you a quick example of the sort of companies we have to say no to. So you can't grow coffee in New Zealand. So a lot of companies will import the beans, roast the beans locally, and then sell them and apply for a New Zealand-made license. For us, that is not a substantial change to the product, right? You're only bringing it in and you're roasting it and then you're selling it. But if a company was to grind it down and turn it into an energy drink and perhaps adds another local ingredient, say Manuka honey, then that would classify as a New Zealand-made product because it's substantially different to its original form. We are very, very strict. Yeah, we turn down a huge number of applications. Yeah. Okay, I was going to play a very quick video, so I'll just play that. Before I communicate the value of signing on to Buy New Zealand Made, I thought I would let some of our 1,500 license holders tell the story as to why they see the value.
We want to support local because we are local. Yeah, there's benefits here in terms of being local, but there's a lot of value for the wider community. Talking to primary customers, they want some New Zealand made. It's really nice to grow a business that includes your local craftspeople. And with the whole Buy NZ Made sort of branding as well, and what that represents for me, that should be Kiwi businesses supporting other Kiwi businesses. After the COVID lockdown, people have got knocking on that door saying we want New Zealand.
We're really wanting to support local and New Zealand made. It seemed to shake up New Zealanders to look at things that are made in New Zealand and feel a little bit more considerate to that. You can buy anything from New Zealand made. It just gives you that sense of pride that you've actually manufactured it here.
We have to not only be made in New Zealand, but we've got to prove that the goods that are made here are equal to.
Making a positive impact for people, for communities, for environment, and actually trying to make a better world for our future.
Cool. So actually that last business that was featured there is a really interesting one. They're a seaweed. Basically, they manufacture different products from seaweed. So they do fertilizer, which for New Zealand's agriculture industry is huge. So for the fertilizer, it actually reduces emissions quite substantially. It goes into health and beauty products, energy drinks, and it's really quite an interesting growth industry. I'll get back into the presentation. Cool. So yeah, we obviously just heard some of the value from the New Zealand Made license holders. 97% of consumers are supportive of buying New Zealand Made, so almost everyone. 70% of Kiwis often consider whether a product's New Zealand Made. I think we've got a stat that says 65% will choose a New Zealand Made product over an overseas alternative. So people have really got behind the shop local movement during COVID. We were quite lucky at the time. We had a Prime Minister who was very well loved. And anything she said went down really well, right? So she was getting out there saying, she was standing at a podium saying, buy New Zealand Made, we really need to support local brands. And people really got behind that movement. So we grew around 20 or 30% during that time. And in general, country of origin campaigns will do quite well during downturns. Yeah, as a lot of people turn inward and try and source everything locally. Like you guys, I'm guessing, there were quite significant shipping cost increases and significant delays, which made things really hard for our manufacturers and for consumers, right? If you wanted to buy a couch that was made in China, usually it might take a few weeks. It was taking, 6 months or a year or maybe not coming at all. But we can actually do almost everything in New Zealand. It's quite remarkable. We've got every industry imaginable, furniture manufacturers, clothing manufacturers. We've got a clothing company down in Christchurch where this is, almost unheard of in the textiles or clothing industry, but you can go from their shop and then you can walk around the corner and see your garments being made. And that's the sort of level of transparency I think consumers are demanding these days. So I'll talk about that a bit more later. 86% of Kiwis are willing to pay a premium for New Zealand made. We haven't done that much overseas research because we are quite small, but I think we really want to focus on the domestic market first and get Kiwis behind the brand. But from what I've heard in my discussions, the brand's really well received overseas, especially in Australia and some parts of Asia. People care more about the environment than ever, and I think this is a huge selling point for Made in Hawaii and Made in New Zealand. Manufacturing closer to home drastically reduces shipping and logistics emissions, right? And if we really want to be sustainable, we need to be thinking about this sort of stuff. Also, in terms of ethics, people care about the people who make their products. And while we might be able to get things really cheaply made in China, in many cases people are suffering, right? And we really have had an awakening on this and care about it. So we're trying to sort of play into that value. 92% of Kiwis are seeking out ethically made goods, and 3/4 see New Zealand made goods as more ethically manufactured. Okay, there's quite a few similarities between the two brands, Made in Hawaii and New Zealand Made. Obviously, the most obvious one is the distance from markets. I know you guys are on, some trade routes, but for us, we're really in the middle of nowhere. I'm guessing a lot of people can't even identify where New Zealand is on the map. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's quite hard to get to. So we really need our own manufacturing industry to provide products for New Zealanders. We have, I'd say, an over-reliance on tourism and a struggle to break away from solely being a destination. When I burst the tire and I met with the family on the road to Hana, they were complaining about how many tourists had come back. And it's a very similar story in New Zealand. The day I left, I took a photo in Wellington, which is where I live, and there are about 200 people waiting for a bus on the main street. So it's just like people have come back in droves, right? The tourism is a lot more full on than it was before the pandemic. And we all know, even though we're so sustainable in terms of our tourism, the impacts that tourism has on our country and our natural environments. We both have a really strong cultural identity, which translates into brand value. Obviously, I talked about the connection between native Hawaiians and New Zealand Maori. I don't think that's something that should be tokenized, but it is something we can really, that does have value and is well received internationally. Very similar natural environments, as I said. A lot of people have asked me what New Zealand looks like, and it looks almost identical to Hawaii. And the last thing is that we're both probably facing a bit of a generational divide between young and traditional manufacturers. I might get into this a bit later in the presentation. So what did we learn from the past 3 or 4 years? Well, I don't think anyone predicted it would go on for as long as it did. It was a real mixed bag in New Zealand. We had some companies had their most successful years ever, and we had a lot of businesses fail. Luckily, the government propped us up and provided a lot of support for small businesses. We had, a great prime minister at the time who was getting behind the messaging of support local, shop local. I've actually noticed a lot of that messaging around here and in Maui also. People care more about where their products come from than ever. We've seen it with the organic and sort of B Corp movements. As I mentioned, people are thinking about their carbon footprint and the impact that their purchasing decisions have. I mentioned this before, country of origin branding is quite resilient during downturns. Manufacturers are pulling out of unreliable supply chains amid global tensions. We have to ask ourselves some quite serious questions about what it means to be manufacturing offshore. So New Zealand's biggest trading partner is China. Almost half of our carbon emissions are come from imports. What happens if China decides to invade Taiwan? Do we go with the same sanctions that we've gone with for Russia? What does that look like for a country like New Zealand that is so reliant on China's manufacturing industry? It's an interesting question, but what we're seeing is a lot of businesses diversifying their supply chains away from China now. It's not what it once was to make things there. It's a lot more expensive. There's the same sort of injustices and human rights issues. So yeah, a lot of manufacturers are bringing it home, bringing their manufacturing home with that in mind. People will pay a premium for our perceived purity and quality. This is a big one. People 9 times out of 10 will pay a little bit more for New Zealand made. We do have the research. It's about 5 to 10%, which probably isn't enough to cover the extra costs of manufacturing locally, but it's growing. People are becoming more aware of the benefits. People want to be a part of a community, and a strong relationship with the media is essential. I think we have very good connections to the media in New Zealand, probably because it's quite small. So as soon as we hear about a really interesting business, I can send a text message to a journalist, and it will be in the news the next day. So we're sort of like a PR company as well, almost, for our license holders. We can get them in the news. Everybody has a story to tell, yeah? Everybody has a story to tell. It's just getting the story out of people. And in New Zealand, Kiwis are quite humble, so it's really hard for them to see the value in telling their story. But yeah, I think there is, as Byron mentioned, there's huge value in telling your story. Moving on. I've got a quote here: quality is remembered long after price is forgotten. As soon as a country like New Zealand or a state like Hawaii tries to compete on price, you've already lost, because we can't beat China, or we can't beat overseas manufacturing, but we can beat them on quality, yeah? Consumers are willing to pay a premium. There is a huge market, even during downturns, even during a cost of living crisis, which is what we're experiencing in New Zealand at the moment. People remember quality. So this is what our businesses pay to sign on to the campaign. We start at $100, which is very, very, very cheap. The reason behind that is because we want our cottage businesses to be on the journey with us. We don't want to seclude small businesses at their early stage, because we never know what they're going to grow into. And it goes all the way through to $5,000 for our bigger businesses. Majority of our companies are in the $275 to $350 annual fee range. We still have quite a few in the top tier. To be honest with you, all of these prices could probably be doubled, and we would still do extremely well. And we have been looking at putting up our prices, but it's hard to do something like that during a downturn or a crisis or a pandemic. So I've been holding off on doing it. There's a lot of pressure to put up our prices. But yeah, we know businesses are having a bit of a tough time at the moment. So yeah, our strategic priorities, having come through 3 of our best years, are a new website targeting the next-gen business owner. I'll talk about that in a second. The launch of packages. So under a gold package, we haven't finalized this, but under a gold package, they could get a press release, a feature on our website, and a feature video on our YouTube channel, and then all the way through down to bronze, where they get less benefits. Something we've struggled with is becoming a facilitator of connections and building a community of like-minded businesses that can procure from each other. It's quite hard. A lot of our companies sign up to just use the logo and they don't want anything else to do with us because the logo is so well known. So we really need to work on building the connection to the brand and building a community. And we've got Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups and WhatsApp and all these things, but quite often a marketing manager will sign a business up to New Zealand Made and then leave the company and we've lost that connection. So that's something we really need to focus on is building communities or building tribes, as a lot of marketers sort of talk about. We're working on a trade window partnership. So that is basically, you guys are going to laugh at this because you're so far ahead of us, but scanning QR codes to find out what's behind your product, who made it, what materials or what goods it's made from. Yeah, the QR code system here is really good. It's, you know, order food, you can do everything. You can't do that stuff in New Zealand yet, so we're sort of like leaders of our time. Yeah, we've got a long way to go. We're all the way done there, so. And continue developing a strong sense of connection to the brand among our license holders. This is a no-brainer, obviously. We are faced with a bit of a dilemma for the New Zealand Made brand. So we've done a lot of research and our current license holder is an average of 20 years old. They're a male traditional manufacturer and a sole director. He's driven by nostalgia and has held onto his license for 20 years because it brings him a sense of pride. We're not seeing that many of these companies sign on anymore. We're seeing a new age sort of entrepreneur come on now. So we're sort of tailoring our content to meet a younger demographic. This new entrepreneur is progressive, a risk taker, and has a very short attention span. So we used to do videos that were over an hour long. They were podcast form, and you know, you can get the analytics and the views just like drop off like insanely after 10 minutes. So we reduced it down to 20 minutes and still we were getting a similar theme. We reduced it down to 10 minutes and it got a bit better. And now our videos are 2 to 3 minutes because that's what you've got these days. You know, like we're in a TikTok world where people get instant gratification. How do you compete with that as a brand, right? Like you just have to put the stuff right in front of them. We actually probably should, I know that TikTok's a bit of a sensitive topic in America, but we actually, they approached us and they're like, do you want to produce educational content for us? And we'll give you 10 grand or something. And I was like, we said yes in the end. But it was an interesting experience to see how the platform worked and we've sort of died down and yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, so we really need to focus on this next generation of business owner, which actually more often than not is a woman these days. So this is some of our sort of collateral that targets a younger, new age entrepreneur. Obviously, they're more concerned about the environment and things like that. We also allow companies to choose any color they want. That's cool. Yeah, so that's basically about tailoring the brand to any type of packaging or business. Yeah, a lot of our companies are in the health and beauty sector or food and beverage, and they're creating really cool designs that are very colorful, fluoro, and really engaging content. So we need to meet the expectations of that new business owner. Yeah, so I think the 70% was mentioned earlier on, but 70% of our businesses, yours was 71, was it, Pat, I think? Yeah, there's like almost identical. Say that sales have increased since signing on. So yeah, I guess the catch here is that they generally sign on as early stage businesses. So in general, their sales are going to increase. So yeah, that's a good stat. More than half say signing on has increased interest in their business. And we've got a very high net promoter score because our customers are so loyal to us. Our greatest potential lies in our ability to get our most loyal customers to become our marketers. So I say this every time we go out and see a business. the best way for us to get reach is for you to share the content. And for us, you know, in a small country like New Zealand, word of mouth is still an amazing form of marketing. We do a lot of like really targeted ads, Google ads, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatnot, but you know, a huge number of our new sign-ons come from referrals, which is quite amazing. This is an interesting one. So the Maori name for New Zealand is Aotearoa, which means land of the long white cloud, which also means it's always overcast. But not quite as bad as the UK, but it's still pretty bad. The Maori economy is growing significantly and really fast, and it's iwi run, which is run by the tribes. It's forecast to, actually it's going to exceed this for sure. It's on track to reach $100 billion by 2030. It should quite comfortably do that in the next few years. And they're also diversifying into sectors that we haven't seen before. Tailoring a Maori-specific logo is not an easy task. It needs to be led by Maori. We really don't want to risk the whole tokenism thing. And whether or not we own that, or whether the iwi or the tribes own that, is really up for discussion. But we're having these discussions now. Yeah, I think, as I said, you know, you don't want to try and sell a culture, but there is real value in Maori culture. Maori operate their businesses by a value called kaitiakitanga, which basically means taking care of the environment and never taking more than you need. And all of their businesses have sustainability at their heart. So it's a really interesting sector that's really thriving as they sell into different parts of the world, including China and whatnot. So, nearing the end of this, looking ahead, we have some serious decisions to make about whether we continue to invest in the New Zealand-made brand. We do very well, and we make a lot of money, but we're very domestically focused, right? So we need to decide whether or not we want to grow the brand internationally and partner with government or sell it to someone who wants to make that investment. I would really love to partner with government because they have a lot of money. We're privately owned at the moment. And they can really help us out with, you know, getting ads on TV and the things that we don't really have enough money to invest in. I know a lot of country of origin campaigns around the world do work with their government or are part owned by the government, including Australia. Pat, you're like, oh, we should have got someone from Australia. New Zealand and Australia have a huge rivalry, right? Like, we're like real competitors. So I want to see every country of origin brand do really well, apart from Made in Australia. No, I'm just kidding. I still want to see them do well, and every country should have their own country of origin campaign, right? It's all about supporting local manufacturers, and it's just the right thing to do for a country. So I've had some preliminary discussions with the small business minister in New Zealand. He actually lost his job yesterday. I don't actually know why, but I flicked through the news and saw it. So I guess we're going to have preliminary discussions again about the government perhaps taking an ownership stake, just so we have something to fall back on and some kind of support to help us take the brand to the next level. It's in their best interest, right, to grow the local economy and to help local manufacturers. Yeah, I think that is pretty much everything. There's another half to this presentation, which I'll send through to Pat and she can share with you. I'll also send you our eligibility criteria and our brand guidelines, which is quite interesting. As I say, like holding ourselves to that really high standard of New Zealand made just sets us apart and ensures that we are perceived to be a high quality brand and we are driving that demand when people can't get it. Yeah, there's a huge number of companies who want it, and we just urge them to make very minor changes and they can actually acquire it. So yeah, I'm open to any question. I made it after the water incident, which is good. Didn't have to run off to the toilet. Yeah, if there's any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. It was really interesting. To do over, would you stay starting private and then look to partner with government after development? Or have you seen more success in programs that started government first?
That's a good question. So New Zealand Made has had some quite significant partnerships with government early on in its history. And that was really when we were a lot smaller, but the brand really thrived even more so than it's doing today. You know, having come through COVID, everybody knew it. That's when everyone got their tattoos. The brand was huge, right? And there were campaigns on TV every night. You know, business leaders were wearing New Zealand Made trucker caps. I don't know whether, to be honest, like, I have to be careful what I say, but our government quite often stuffs things up. So like, we need to be careful about partnering with them, and we don't want them to have like full control of the brand. Like, there are advantages and disadvantages to being private, right? We still have complete control over it. We're actually run as a non-profit, so we're not here to make a lot of money, and that's never been the objective. We're here to help businesses. So yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know the answer, but I'd like to see us partnering with the government in the near future, in the next 2 years, hopefully. New Zealand is quite likely to see a change of government this year. So yeah, we'll really kick off the discussions after the election this year.
Mahalo for your presentation. My question is about enforcement. How do you enforce the use of the logo and make sure that only those licensees are using them and someone's not illegally using them or what?
Yeah, so we've got a auditing process which is quite stringent. We actually use a lot of interns, and we get university students come in and help us with that sort of stuff. So we've got a guy who's really good at going through websites and tracking former license holders or companies that have applied and not succeeded. A lot of people rip off the brand, it's even in New Zealand, it's such a small place, like you're probably going to get found out. Our companies are highly competitive, so quite often they will dob each other in. They'll be like, oh, they're using the logo and I don't think they make it here, So yeah, almost every day we get tip-offs of companies using the logo, and basically we reach out to them and we say, look, you don't have a license with us. If you want to apply, you can do so here. And then if they don't respond to that, we sort of threaten them. No, I'm just kidding. We do not threaten them. Do not take that. Why is that happening?
The lie detector.
Okay, we do threaten them. Yeah, we just send these guys around and we get paid. No, we if we have to, we send them a letter from a lawyer, but I prefer not to do that. We don't want to be a threatening sort of brand. We just politely ask them to remove it. And if they still don't, last resort, we might send them a letter. Yep.
Hi. So I can't imagine you guys were the only ones with the New Zealand Made type of logo. How did you guys compete with, we have like Made in Maui that was run by Maui Chamber of Commerce, but they didn't do any advertisement. What kind of advertisement did you guys do, and how did you compete, I assume, with other similar type of logos to win out?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I think we are so lucky, and it's obviously no credit to me, but for 30 years, the investment has been made into this brand to make it really well recognized. And we do have occasionally competitors pop up. Actually, all the time, competitors pop up trying to set up or establish a new made in New Zealand brand. A lot of people think they can do it better, but it honestly only takes, you know, a few months and they die down. So we're really lucky. We don't have any direct competition. New Zealand does have a government-run, it's called the Fernmark program, which basically helps manufacturers that are exporting overseas and gives them on-the-ground support in those countries. So in a sense, they are a competitor, but I don't really see it like that. You know, because we're more domestically focused, even though the brand is used by 400 or 500 manufacturers and well recognized overseas, both of these brands should have the primary purpose of seeing New Zealand businesses exceed. So like, I wouldn't call it competition. I've had meetings with them and we're like, yeah, let's work together and like we can do like a discount scheme each way where like low level or like startup businesses sign on to New Zealand Made, then once they're a big exporter, we hand them on to the Fernmark and they get this great discount and we can put them in your hands and you take it from there sort of thing. So yeah, it's just been around for a long time, a lot of investment. The ads have been across the board, you know, TV, we get a lot of organic reach through media contacts. I used to be in the media, so like I sort of understand how to pitch a story. That's quite important as well, you know, knowing how to tell a story and how to pitch it so that it's not too advertorial. There's, as I said, every business has a story to tell. It's just getting it out of them. So we also do a lot of campaigning. So we've got New Zealand Made Day, which is on November 21, which is a day the country really gets behind, and we get a lot of media coverage on that, usually like 6 p.m. news, and we've got late shows and stuff like that. So yeah, that tends to do really well. And we actually set up New Zealand Made Day to sort of give people the realization that it's actually the same week as Black Friday, right? And we want people to think about, in the lead up to Christmas, supporting smaller local manufacturers rather than buying from, you know, big box retailers overseas. So yeah, that day does really well. Yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit. You can do so many things to campaign and to get the brand in front of people. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dane. That was a lot of food for thought. We're going to break now for lunch, and that's in room 313. And then also we have a guest speaker, Harold Koda. So I think you're going to grab bentos and then go into room 313, and there's tables to sit out and start chatting among yourselves about all this great material we've had this morning. See you in there.